It's not an ashram where men and women live. So our activities, a lot of it focuses on publishing. There's many groups, like you mentioned, Chinmaya Mission is excellent at having teachers in lots of the cities in the world and doing a great service there, and also their courses are used by others. So we're not trying to do that. They're doing a great job. We're trying to provide knowledge about Hinduism, both in our printed publications and our website, and occasionally in personal presentations. So that's one of our books, What is Hinduism? We publish a magazine, Hinduism Today. There's one in the corner there if you could. So we have an unusual mission, or two-pointed mission. Most Hindu groups, they just have their own tradition and publish about their own tradition, like Chinmaya Mission teaches Vedanta and has a certain guru tradition. Ramakrishna Mission has a similar form of Vedanta, slightly different, and they talk a lot about Ramakrishna and Vivekananda and so forth. So our particular mission for our magazine, Hinduism Today, and the books of that nature is to talk about all of Hinduism, try and give an overview of the many traditions within Hinduism, the different denominations, the different philosophies, because we feel, our guru felt that that's needed. You can't really find that in a easily readable form. If you're a professor, then you know it. Professor in Indology, you know that material, but you've had to acquire it through reading some very scholarly books. So we try and present it in a more popular way, as well as in a contemporary way, as the name Hinduism Today says. We're talking about today and not just the past. Trying to talk about today's institutions, today's trends, today's problems, and show the principles in that context. And then our personal practice is Saivite. So we are the Saivite denomination of Hinduism. But in our general literature, we have a rule that we don't put forward Saivism more than anything else. And we don't put ourselves forward hardly at all in our magazine materials of that nature. We reserve that for our other kinds of books on Saivism. So we're trying to do two things, and we feel our information is very helpful for Hindus in outside of India. There's more guidance in India. Outside of India, there's a lack of guidance in Hinduism. Even though there are teachers, there are not that many teachers, are not that available. So it's hard to get good answers on Hinduism. And it's particularly important if you're raising children in North America, to have good answers to provide to your children. Because it's a big challenge. It's a challenge that isn't understood at the beginning of raising Hindu children in a society in which they're the minority. They are a minority. A pluralistic religious society where people move from one religion to another and so forth. It's a very different society than, say, India. So the difference of growing up in India and growing up here is a big difference that religiously needs to be thought about. We've noticed, for example, you run into college youth, and you take a youth who's grown up in the USA, who was born here or else came here at a very early age, versus one who's grew up in India and is just here for university training, and they're totally different in the way they look at things. Totally different people. Having grown up in a society where Hindus are the majority, they have a very different outlook on themselves and on Hinduism than having grown up in the USA, say, where Hinduism is a minority. So we try and talk about some of the issues that we have found parents facing, and both with young children and older children in our materials, and try and give some guidance, and try and give some clarity on Hinduism as well, and suggestions to temples on activities for youth, because it's a big challenge to keep the youth interested in Hinduism once they get into their teens. It's easy until they're 13. They'll probably go to the temple. But when they're 16, how many 16-year-olds do you see at temples? Very few. The age drops right off. So it's a big challenge, and we try and do our part to give guidance to both, suggestions really, to both families and institutions on how to work with teenagers and then 20-year-olds and so forth. So that's the kind of information we're putting out. And what we feel is, as I say, there's not enough of an overview. So, for example, the material of the Chinmaya mission is used in many temples. Very popular material, very good material. But it doesn't really introduce you to traditions outside of Vedanta. So when the children run into Vaishnavism and Vaishnavite teachers, and what the Vaishnavite teachers are saying is contradicting what they learned, they're not prepared for that. No material has taught them anything about Vaishnavism that they've encountered. So they get confused. Well, why does this Swami say this and say you shouldn't worship Shiva, and we say over here you have a choice? So it's very useful to have more of an overview presented to the youth somehow, and we try and do that in our material. For those of you who haven't been there, we have one that was established in 1973. The main murti is in Nataraja, and then we're building a granite hand-carved temple, which is a very slow process, and so that's moving along very well, and hopefully it'll be finished in 6 years or so in the future. We've been carving since, was it 1990? Carving for 18 years and assembling it for 6 years. So it's a very slow process. Something that kings were good at in the past, because they had lots of people. They could do it more quickly. But we don't have lots of people, so it's a slow process. Plus, there aren't a lot of people trained in it anymore. It's not a popular profession, being a stone carver, because you don't make a fortune carving temple stones. So maybe I could ask if there's any questions after.
A Hindu child.
Well, I'd say it's a generalization, but children that grow up in India are more likely to be practicing Hindus when in their 20s. And the children that grow up Hindus that grow up in the U.S. are less likely to be a practicing Hindu. They don't see the need to go to the temple. They don't see the need to do this. They don't see the need to do that. It's not that they're against it, but they're less likely to be doing it once they reach their 20s than same person if he had grown up in India. So that's the difference. That's the challenge, is to instill in those who grow up in America Hinduism in such a way that they're motivated to go to the temple and observe the festivals, observe the home practices. So they don't understand the benefit or the need. It's not clear how it would help them have a better life. And there's no compelling, it's not what everyone else is doing. It's not like what all your friends are doing. Everybody's going to the temple when you're in India, so it's natural for you to want to go. The whole extended family, the whole region is going and doing it together, whereas here, it's not the case. Hindus are spread out, and so you don't have that sense of a group doing something that kind of keeps you involved. It's more on an individual basis, unless you're a part of a really strong Hindu family. But lots of Hindu families just kind of stand apart. In the U.S., they're all spread out.